Hi there, I'm the Unschooled Twig and I like analysing game rules. So I'm generally pretty positive about the D&D playtest and the 2024 books. I think that most things do seem to be moving in the correct direction, and I like most of what they've come up with. Not everything is perfect, of course. I'm sad that they brought back Pact Magic after the fantastic playtest 5 Warlock was shown off. I also much prefer a template model for Wild Shape, and I'm really disappointed that there's no plans for Artificer. But for the most part, they're doing good. This video isn't about that though. This video is about something that I'm legitimately not happy about. And unlike most things people have been complaining about, this change has been confirmed. WotC have stated outright that they are removing the content on my favourite page of the PHB, page 184. Page 184 is not an especially important page, it doesn't have any powerful feats or spells, and it isn't the mythical key to unlocking hiding. But for me, it does beat out all of those for one specific reason. Something else that I like more than the feat page is my patrons, who help support me and my videos. These guys got to watch this early and can hang out with me on my Discord. In particular, I'd like to thank SK, who is just frankly hot. Like, he's just really sexy. Anyways, page 184 is in the middle of chapter 8 at Adventuring, just opposite the rules for food and water and interacting with objects. I affectionately call it Chompy McFeatherhand. So, Chompy over here has just sort of become a meme in my group. He gained his name from the fact that it looks like he's biting his own left hand, and the positioning of his right hand makes his bracelet look like his arm just sort of turns into a pile of feathers. This goofy little guy also has weird ghost legs and is about to drop his own bow. Having said that though, I do genuinely love this piece of art, and I was serious when I said it was my favourite page of the PHB. Whilst it might be a bit silly when you first spot it on a delirious 2 AM Discord call after spending 6 hours DMing, it is a great painting. Its real name is Nightwatch, and it's by Ralph Horsley using oil paint on primed illustration board. I've put Horsley's DeviantArt and Etsy in the description by the way, and I'll do the same for the rest of the artists that I mentioned in this video. Horsley's work on this one is just great though. The bark on the tree just looks fantastic, the stroke work is excellent here. And then there's the framing, with the foreground branches, our tired yawning elf in the focus, and then this unsettling forest in the background, which is only being lit by the party's fire. This video is dedicated to the great art in the 2014 Player's Handbook, Monster Manual, and Dungeon Master's Guide. So, the next piece of art that I want to talk about is, in my opinion, the second most important image in the PHB. The most important image is of course the front cover, so this is just behind that. I want you to imagine that you're trying to introduce a friend to the game. They've never played D&D before and don't really know all that much about it, but they've finally agreed to give it a shot. According to basically every survey WotC have ever done, there's like a 70% chance that your friend is just going to say something along the lines of, "I want to play a guy with a sword, like Aragorn." This is because, of course, the most popular cultural touchstones for medieval fantasy are things like Lord of the Rings and Game of Thrones. That is absolutely something that they can play. So you turn to the fighter on page 70, and they come face to face with this guy. To say it lightly, popular medieval fantasy is the realm of the white European, to the extent that often even American productions will opt for actors with either British or maybe Western European accents. The PHB's fighter is more likely than not one of the first pieces of dedicated character art that a new player will see in the PHB, and they are just entirely not that. They look to me like they're from Southern Africa, but they also don't play into the stereotype of being a noble savage or being a hulking giant black guy. He's just standing there, relaxed and smiling slightly. This fighter is digital art by Belisle, and I think that it fulfills two major functions for new players. First, it says loud and clear, this game is for everyone. It is inclusive. We don't care about your heritage, we just want to have fun killing goblins. And second, it starts to break down the classical fantasy stereotypes right at the beginning. Whilst the character that your friend is going to play in this session might be basically just Aragorn, the next one that they play might use a spear, like our fighter in the picture, or they might have a slightly different backstory to the cultural touchstones that they were relying on before, because this art just clearly doesn't conform to that. Belisle's fighter is important because it shows front and centre that it is okay to be different in this game. Right, now let's move over to one of the most common problems for DMs who want to start designing a new world: maps. When a DM first starts creating their own worlds, especially if they're younger, they can often be overly ambitious. I know I certainly was. We want to make everything ourselves, and this is frankly an overwhelming amount of work. To be really clear right now, as a very experienced DM, if you are planning to run a homebrew campaign, there are a bunch of resources online that people have just put up for free. Or maybe they've put up a paid version if you want it in 4K without a watermark. You don't need to make everything yourself. If you do want to though, one of the most overwhelming maps that you can try to make is a city map. When most of us think of cities, we think of gigantic things that take half a day to walk across, full of multiple entertainment districts, office complexes and suburbs, all of which need amenities like schools and shops, transport links, addresses, and God knows what else. Maybe it's your second campaign after starting off with Dragon Heist, and you were playing with the mess that is Waterdeep. Hell, I grew up with a map of Ankh-Morpork from Discworld on my living room wall. These maps are horrifically complicated, so us young, overwhelmed DMs open up our JMGs to help, go to the Mapping a Settlement section in Chapter 5, and on page 115 we meet this. This is manageable. This is The City by Mike Schley, and unfortunately I do not know what medium it's in. It has a texture and a slight shadow which would suggest that it's on an illustration board, but that could also just be a digital texture that was overlaid. The city looks like you could probably walk across it in 5 or 10 minutes. It only has one main road with a couple of branches, and only one district which looks like compact housing, up in the top left. There's no street names, no zoning, no labels, but if your players wanted to go to the mayor's house, you could probably fairly easily scan through it for like 30 seconds, see that large brown roof about halfway down on the left and say, sure, he lives here. It looks much simpler than other maps, and the art style is also fairly minimal. Schley's artwork here just says, it's okay to go easy. You don't need to overwork yourself. And that's an incredibly important lesson for a DM to learn. The art in these books really just teaches players and DMs how to play the game, how to avoid common pitfalls. It shows you other routes. You don't have to do what everyone else is doing, you can do this instead. It's frankly an absolute gift to people who are just starting out. There's one more piece that I want to look at, back in the PHB, which is on page 172. It's the title art for Chapter 7, using ability scores, and it depicts a halfling lowering herself from a domed roof of a museum to steal a giant helmet from right behind a guard's back. Unfortunately, I couldn't find out anything about this piece. No one seems to have claimed credit for it. This heist is just beautiful. The cold blue palette really portrays the silence of the action, and the detail in some of these background art pieces, like this dwarf, is incredible. This is one of those images that can inspire an entire quest. I know that because I've run a quest inspired by this image. The museum heist is a classic, but this piece just shows it off so incredibly well. If anyone knows who the artist behind this heist is, please let me know. Also, actual final art piece, quick shout out to Richard Whitters for the conditions in Appendix A of the PHB. Those little sketches are lovely. Thanks for watching. For any of you who are confused as to why a mechanics focused channel just made a video about art, check the date this was released. We're getting entirely new art in the 2024 books, and what they've shown off so far looks great. I'm going to be sad to see a PHB without Chompy or the Fighter, but I'm looking forward to all of the new stuff that will replace them. My only worry is that they're going to focus more on digital art, rather than a mix of different mediums. I really like the mix that the old PHB has, and some of the oil paintings are amazing. The last thing that I should probably address, since I'm doing a video about D&D art anyway, is these accusations of using AI art. Don't believe everything you see on the internet, guys. That's just simply not true. WotC have publicly banned the practice, and they've now republished Bigby's with replaced art that doesn't use AI. When those accusations were first made, several artists also went onto Twitter and shared the work in progress and sketches of their work to prove that it's not AI generated. I am very much anti-AI art, but in this case, I don't think it's something especially worth worrying about. Bye!